Hi, welcome in the Roboflow What's New movie. This What's New movie covers Cumulus version 11.0.2 with Roboflow.0.2 as well. If you open the server console Roboflow and go to show log, you can always check what version Roboflow is running at this moment. And as you can see, in this version there is some new features for this release. And so release 11.0 was up to here, and this is up to release 11.02. So what is new in this version is a couple of things. First of all, some people use on their servers automatic backup systems or mirror systems. One example could be Google Drive, who monitors your Cumulus setup and makes a backup somewhere. What can happen is that these applications lock up your file. And if a file is locked up, and at that point you are editing in that workflow and you try to save, then the save might fail. The problem is that the save deletes the file and then writes the new version. So that could end up in a microsecond that it is deleting the file and not being allowed to write it because the deleted file is still locked by Google Drive. It's an exceptional situation, but we have customers who encountered it. So in that case, this fix will automatically save whatever is failing to save. So that could be the Roboflow param, or that could be the Roboflow actions for files or action for scripts. It will save that as a different version. You can always check here. This is the path to your workflow. And if you go to that particular folder, you can see that already when it is saving files, file action, Roboflow param, record action, depending on the type of workflow you might have these. This is the old one, which it no longer uses. But what is important is that these types of parameter files, before they are saved, it backs up the previous version, which is of course great. But if it fails to do so, then it also saves it under a completely different name. So what it does is it takes the current file that is trying to write, in which you might have made changes, and for, of course, Roboflow param, there's not so much parameters, so maybe not so bad if this disappears, but it is very bad if you just have an action script with 20 lines, 30 lines, 50 lines of actions. If you lose that, as I said, it's an exceptional situation, but in that case you will see that there will be a file with this name, but instead of backup it will be called save. That way, if you go into your workflow and you see that the script has gone, that the parameters are no longer there, then you can simply come back here and you can replace this one by this one, or if it's this one, it will be called save here, and then it's this one replaces the live one, and that way you never lose your stuff. So when Roboflow saves a workflow, it saves the current version there, and then it saves the new version. If the new version save fails, then it saves that to another file which doesn't exist yet, so which it should not have a problem writing, because it cannot be locked by anything in the background that might be locking it. So that's what this first fix does. I cannot demonstrate it because it happens so infrequently, but if it happens, it's good to know that you have a fix. The next fix in this version that we are going to take a look at is the fact that now we call it 245, that we've extended the filter possibility so that you can use in the folder filter, for instance, an OR instruction. And let me show that in a workflow. All these things in regards to these workflows with new functionalities or fixed functionalities, I will cover them in separate training movies, but here in this training movie or in this Watch New training movie, I give you a quick overview. So if you want a more detailed information, please watch the specific movie with that team. It will be called something like the name of the workflow. So if you see the name of the workflow here, just go and look for it on YouTube and you will find it, or just subscribe to my channel on YouTube or my account on the Cumulus community. So here again, if 245, sorry, you in the past, if you had a watch folder, you could for that watch folder say that, for instance, you only wanted to process files in the new folder. But what if you've had two files from which you wanted to ingest? Maybe you had new and updated. Well, this is exactly what we're saying here. The exclamation mark new hash new is the standard syntax as it always has been, and but you could not have two like this in here. So now you could say that you only want new, or it has to be updated. This is actually the same as you would write like this. This is what would do. So for this feature, it would not be useful, but just to understand what it does, I'm just showing you that this syntax is also possible. But now you can say some of the features allow you only to have this on the first level. So if I prefix this with a question mark, the question mark in this says that I'm only filtering this, I'm only interested in new, then this says this filter is only level 1. So in level 2, it allows to have whatever you want. So then in that case, if this is that, then this means that this allows it to be in any level, or it allows it to be in the update folder. So in here in level 1, it accepts anything, but then from level 2, it only accepts the new ones. So then you can say, or it accepts if it's updated. So then that means from the first level, it accepts updated. And so you can use here the or, and you can also use the and. So there might be situations where you want from a bunch of folders the subfolder of a folder to be this or that. And so that's here a possibility. So you have to look up the meanings of these several exclamation marks. It could mean it goes further down into the folder tree. So just check it out under the help and you will find more explanation there. So 245 also has the ability to have a folder filter a filter on your catalog name. So imagine that you have 50 catalogs and you have a workflow, a hot collection workflow, for instance, that has to go do exactly the same thing for these 50 workflows. What you could do is that you could specify them one by one, and let's say they are called sample space 1 colon sample space 2 colon, etc., etc. So you see, you would have to specify all 50. it's even worse if you have, for instance, this workflow and your catalogs are named per year, so that each year you are creating a new workflow. That means that each year, or each month is even worse, you would have to come back here and say, okay, now I want to check all my workflows where I've been using these catalogs because I have a new catalog, have to come back. So if this workflow is there for a certain type of workflow and you have a naming convention for that type of workflow, you now can say star, and star means every workflow. So if you just specify it like this, then it will loop this process for every workflow that this user, as which Roboflow is running, can access. If you're running at the Cumulus administrator, that also means it would do the dollar statistics and the dollar categories, and maybe you don't want that. Well, regular expression, and you can just, if you don't know what this is, a regular expression, you can look it up. Just Google Java space regular expression, and it will explain what the syntax is. Here I can say, imagine all my catalogs start with sample, and then they have maybe a space and a date. Then you could specify it like this: any catalog that starts with sample, and this dot star means, and following in the name can be any character, any amount of times. So sample 1 would be done, also sample 2014. And you could also refine it even more. The regular expressions allow you to go very specific, but that is basically what you can do with this. Another example, so this was fix 245, and so fix 245 gives you that opportunity. Then the next fix, or actually new feature, is the 246. 246 is the ability to call an external script. What does this mean? Well, an external script is actually any script in Roboflow, and with the old version of Cumulus, of Roboflow version 8 or something, when we did not have yet this nice integration in the web server console, but that when Roboflow was a standalone application, you were able to call an external script like this with script and then the path to the script. But with Cumulus, since Cumulus 9.2, with the new style of Roboflow workflows, these action scripts has changed in syntax, so you could no longer do that. So to keep backwards compatibility, I modified this instruction that if you prefix the path to the script with an exclamation mark, then it will use the old school, the new type of workflows. Why is this now useful? Why would you want to call an external script from this Roboflow? Well, imagine that you have 10 workflows that need to use, that are a little bit different, but need to use some part that is the same for all. Well, you could, in those 10 workflows, build in that part, but if you do that, then you have the disadvantage of having to maintain that 10 times. If anything changes in that logic, you have to modify that 10 times. Well, what you can do here is you can have that logic once, and if it's exactly the same for all workflows, you can just call that script of one of the working workflows where you put it in completely. And then the others, you would just have this one instruction. Another possibility is if it's a part of the script, then you could create a dummy workflow, like here, dummy, and I have some logic in here. It's a very stupid or simple example. I just have this, name, color, hello, and then it will automatically be executed. This workflow, then you put it to interval 0 so that you don't use it, and the other scripts can call this. And so here in this inline instruction, but I'll show you, you can do it with an action just as well. you just specify the path to that script. Where do you get the path from that script? Well, in each workflow, if you look on this tab, you will see that you have the path to the folder, and then you just need to find out what the name of the script is by going to the folder. If you look inside here, we also added under the workflow, Cumulus workflow group, a new action called execute action script. So instead of having to use this inline scripting tag, which looks maybe a little bit strange or difficult, well, you can simply here have this action, and this action just needs the path to that specific file. So you just copy paste it and you paste it in here, and it will automatically work. If you wanted to make it independent of the place where Roboflow is installed, you can replace the installation path of Roboflow by this little tag. So that's what this does. This will execute the action script on the other side, and it's executing it as it would be a part of this script. So anything as objects, tags that exist here in the local or in the global memory of this workflow will automatically be used. And so it becomes part of this script. You could call it even multiple times at multiple locations. So that could also be useful. Maybe you have a very big script where there are 3, 4, 5 parts that repeat itself. Well, instead of repeating it in this script, you could just put that piece into an external script and then simply call that external script. That way it's one place to manage that script. In a little training movie, I will show you how exactly you can use this, but this was just an example of it. Okay, so the next topic, or the next thing that is changed in this version is that what we haven't seen yet is that there is a bug fix for the rename of a folder. So in the previous release, we introduced 2 new actions, the rename folder and rename file, and that is working fine. The only problem is that those instructions also return a result. So if I do a rename, then it says rename file, for instance. Well, if you were to do a test in the old version, previous to 11.02, it would give you a wrong result. It would probably not find the file at all while it is there. And that's because the object under which it was supposed to be stored was the wrong one. So it was not there. So that's why there is a fix for this in this particular version, so that it automatically, when you have a result, you rename a file to another file, well, the resulting file will point to that renamed file or renamed folder. So that is a fix in this version. Also a fix in this version is the ability to be able to process a table field inside a table field. And so I will cover this also in a separate movie, but a table field in a table field means that this table field, like the user comment thread field, is a table field, and in there is another table field called your user comment. So to be able to read the user comment thread field and to get really to the comments of the users, you need to be able to process a table field inside a table field. This was something that had a bug in it, so this is fixed in this release. Again, I will cover this in a separate training movie. The final thing that is fixed in this version is actually in this interface. There is now a new button, and this new button gives you the opportunity. By default you see all workflows, but you see there's a big list of workflows here, and sometimes it's useful that you can say I only want to see the active workflows. The active workflows means the ones that are not set to an interval of 0. Or you could say, I want to go to the disabled workflows, which is the opposite. I only want to see the ones that are disabled. So you can also say the ones that are running. There are no workflows running, or sleeping. Or if you received an error mail, you could go and have a look to the workflows that are in a state of error. You can also see the on-demand. On-demand means that you have them set to -2. Run on demand is -2. So those workflows as well you can filter on. And then you can also search by type of workflow. You can say, I'm looking for the watch folders. So here is in this list apparently only one watch folder, or the hot collections, or the hot folder workflow. And so this way, if you have a big number of workflows, you can trim it down. It will automatically sort by name, but you can sort also by other parameters. And so that's very easy. So this new feature, you just have to be a little bit careful with it. If you have this filter on, if I create now a new workflow of a different type, let's say watch folder, then it will create it correctly, but you won't see it here because it's not compliant with your filter. And then you just need to do show all, or could go to that type before you can see it. And the same for if you say that you only want to see active workflows, well, by default, a new workflow is created as disabled to avoid running it before you have finished the settings. So this is something that should help you work more easily with a big list of workflows. So I hope this was useful. As I said, please check out the individual training movies that will go more in depth on these topics. See you in another training movie. Bye.